Good morning, afternoon, evening. Welcome to No Buzzwords. Please like us, subscribe to us, watch us on YouTube, watch us on Spotify. You can watch and listen on Spotify. And we're on the Facebooks, not the TikToks. Michael, you got the intro for today's guest?
Yes, so we have Sir Pete, also known as Paranormal Pete. He got a podcast by the same name. He also happens to be the town manager, a.k.a. honorary mayor of Port Gamble, as well as the bass player for
Steadyrock Cosmonaut.
Steadyrock Cosmonaut. And you guys are playing where, when?
Our next gig's August 16th at the Manette Saloon.
Okay. It's good to get those things out at the beginning, I think. Sometimes, like if you gotta, because
you forget by the end of the show. Sometimes.
Well, it's not that we forget. We always ask for a plug at the end, but I'm always like, the plug is probably best at the beginning.
Either way, I'm just happy to be here.
Have you played the Manette before? You guys have played the Manette.
I've probably played the Manette 500 times.
Wow.
Whoa.
So a long time.
It's such a cool space.
Love playing there. Yeah. What I love. One of the best things about playing there is if the sound is good that evening, you can feel the bass in your feet, and that's always makes for a good show.
Yeah.
So, I played there for the past 25 years, I guess. So I tried to figure it out once, and that was our previous band I was in. That was kind of like our home base for a few years. So we played there a lot.
Nice.
And so, I love playing there.
Last week we just had on, what's his name? Episode's going to drop today. Kyle from the tattoo shop right next door.
Kyle
Oh,
Wood.
yeah, okay.
Kyle Wood.
Yeah, we played a show with him before.
Yeah, so that episode will drop today as we're recording.
Oh, cool.
And he's a cool guy. So it's a cool community down there.
Yeah, well, I think the music community's always been pretty cool up here. It's everyone gets along pretty good, which is not usual, I think, in other places. But it's always been. I've been playing in bands since about 2000 or so up here. So it's been great. It's a good experience.
Cool.
There's also good donuts in Manette.
Yes, there are.
That's an interesting correlation I never thought about till just now. Downtown Paulsville has incredible donuts and a good music scene. Manette has a good music scene accompanied with incredible donuts.
It's the donuts.
I think, if there's not a good bakery, you might be in trouble.
So is it that musicians are attracted to good bakeries?
Something like that.
Is that what it is?
The older we get.
Yeah, that's true.
Could be some paranormal activity involved.
Well, there's everywhere we are, there's paranormal activity. So,
ooh, expound upon that.
Okay, that was kind of a deep one to
was
drop.
The launch right there.
Yeah.
And don't leave the donuts out.
Okay, I'll see if I can work a donut in here.
Voodoo donuts.
Voodoo donuts, yes. Well, I guess in my experience, I've been doing paranormal investigation and research seriously for almost 15 years. And it's been my experience that being in an old place or something may help, the activity happen in a place, but it's really, we all have our own guardian angels and spirit guides. And so wherever we go, the spirits of people before us are with us. And so wherever we are, there's ghosts. That's just kind of what I figured out over the years. So
how did you figure it out? Like what
experience? I guess experience.
Take us back to that first moment.
Well, that'll get us off the subject. But it's just been my experience in going to haunted places, investigating, leading tours, and meeting so many people.
You've all had similar experiences.
Yeah, people with similar experiences, but for example, up in Port Gamble, there's the Walker-Ames House, and
how do you pronounce that?
Walker-Ames.
Walker-Ames.
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about that here in a minute, but you can have 60 people in that house in an event and you still get activity. You still can collect evidence. So it doesn't matter, if it's one person, 60 people, it doesn't really matter the location. You can almost always find evidence of the paranormal anywhere you go. So it kind of leads me to think that wherever we are, they are. I started doing psychic mediumship about almost 13 years ago. Something I didn't believe in before that, something I was completely skeptical of prior to that. But I joke that the universal 2x4 hit me in the head about 13 years ago, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, We were talking about wrestling earlier. The universal 2x4 hit me in the head, and, it was like, you're going to pay attention to things differently. And so in my experience with doing readings for people and connecting with the other side and their guardian angels or spirit guides, however you want to look at it. I don't know. It's just been a life-changing experiment, I guess. Or
experiment
and experience to kind of know that, they're always around. Our loved ones check on us. And they're to go back to the original point, wherever we are, they are. So wherever we are, they're spirits.
Wild.
Basically. So, yeah. But to go back to your other question of where did it kind of start for me, I would say when I was 7 years old, I had my first experience with the paranormal. At least that's the first one I can remember. I was 7 years old, and my grandparents I grew up in Boise, Idaho. And so my grandparents would come up and take me down to Sedona, Arizona for the summer. And I go spend the summer with them. And so we were on one of those trips, and had just gotten into northern Arizona, heading towards Sedona, and we're just driving along the highway like normal. And all of a sudden, these two older Native American guys appeared in the highway in front of us, and they had their backs to us, but they turned shoulder to shoulder, kind of turned inwards and looked at us. And my grandpa had slammed on the brakes at this point, and so we were skidding.
Whoa.
And we got to them, and they just disappeared.
Whoa.
And they weren't in the mirrors. We didn't hit anything. And so we're stopped there on the highway, and my grandpa looks at me, and mind you, he's from a different generation. He says, "Did you see those old Indians in the road?" And right in that moment, I remember my stomach sank because he saw it too.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, yes. And my grandmother she was on the other side of me sleeping. And he said, "Well, don't wake your grandma up. She'll freak out." And so I was like, okay. And then we never talked about it again. But that was like the first one I can remember. And then just throughout my life, I worked at the Egyptian Theater when I was in college, going to Boise State, and I was the manager at that theater, and it's a known haunted location, downtown Boise. It's a historic theater, and so it was like a nightly normal thing to experience, hearing people walking by my office, talking. When you're closing up, you're in a old 1,600 seat auditorium. You hear seats standing up, like as if someone just stood up, and you can see nobody's in there, and hearing voices and stuff. So I really got a lot of different experiences that way. And then made my way to Port Gamble around 2007 and started hearing about, everybody had a ghost story from where they lived, or something happened, or they'd heard about something from years ago. There's, written reports of the paranormal going back into the 1950s there. And so once I got there, I've always been really into history. I love, I guess I've always been obsessed with history, and maybe it's because I live in the past. I don't know, but that place had so much history. And then I started hearing about all the ghost stories, and I was into it and interested in the, and then in the early, right around that time, I was getting into the Ghost Hunters show on TV, and the plumbers ones, not the Ghost Adventure guys. But I was into Ghost Hunters and was like, I had just didn't realize there was a whole field of research for this stuff and ways to do it. And there's, in fact, a long history of paranormal research. And so that really interested me. And then I got to start doing the Ghost Walk tours in 2011. And it just went from there, because then I got a lot of exposure to it. And being in haunted locations and having a lot of experiences kind of then set me on my journey that I'm on now. So yeah, that was long-winded enough, right?
No, I love that.
So yeah, it's been a wild experience.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer.
Yeah, dude. We both have history. When I was 18, I got my CNA and then my EMT as well. But I've worked a lot of old folks' homes. Yeah. And I like some of my first jobs, working night shift and like.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know if you've heard these stories, but I've like witnessed like even at Martha and Mary, call lights going off at 1 a.m. and there's nobody in that room. The call light goes off.
Oh, really?
You have to go in there and turn it off. Yeah, happened all the time. Or when I was in the Tri-Cities, like same thing. Like we would like hear people like talking down these like wings of places where there was like one of the residents was like at the closest to the nurse's station, but all the other rooms were empty, but you could hear people down there. Ugh. Yeah, dude, that happened
really
all the time. Crazy
yeah,
stuff,
that's
dude.
Yes.
The Messenger House on Bainbridge is known for this stuff. My dad was a cop on Bainbridge for like 38 years, and they would regularly get calls. There was an abandoned, it must have been like a shop or something next door to the old Messenger House, and it was all gated in. Nobody could get in there, and they got called out there like almost on the weekly for people saying there's somebody in there, but there never was.
Interesting. Sounds like a place that needs to be investigated.
Jeez.
I think they renovated that whole. I think the whole facility's been.
After getting called there so many times, your dad
I
must
know.
have started been going like, "Who?
Bring in the bulldozers.
Don't call me, but who are you gonna call?"
There you
Thanks
go.
for the
Nice one.
I
Nice
found
one.
a way. I
was waiting for it. I was thinking Ghostbusters the whole time he was talking. I'm like, I'm not going to put that in there. Michael did.
He took care of it for you.
I found a way.
Yeah. It's old theaters, hospitals, funeral homes, nursing homes, retirement homes. They're notorious for
So
having stuff go on.
So what role do you? Because there are obviously people who don't believe in it as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And within the people who believe in it, I'm sure that there's discrepancies in what, how they would describe what's going on between physical reality, and this land of the dead and the spirits and heaven and hell and all of these different things.
Sure.
So in your estimation, what is the importance, like what role, how has it changed your life? What's the value that you've found within your own life that you think other people maybe are missing out on?
I think the value and uniqueness is finding that being present is important in every day. Like you need to take time to be present with, it's not what you got, it's who you got. Be present with your loved ones. Don't think about tomorrow. Quit worrying about decisions you made yesterday. Be present each day when you can, and to make that conscious effort, because time is short and anybody's time could come up. But then also perspective, I think, just kind of gaining a hard to describe perspective in life of knowing that time is short, but knowing that we don't end is kind of, different.
It's a game changer.
I think everyone's version of heaven is different, or hell, or however you want to think about it. And so, but it's important to be present and just know that we don't end, and that we do go to a place. We all have the opportunity to go to this place where we kind of go to our next step, from this life. And that's, taking care of loved ones, learning all knowledge that you ever want to know. So I guess that's, getting perspective is probably the best part of it, and just knowing that we don't end, and that there is the afterlife. I really believe that. When you're talking about different roles and, people who don't believe, skeptics are the most important part of paranormal research in the paranormal field. Those skeptics are probably the most important. I started as an open skeptic. When I jumped into researching paranormal, I was open to experience. Wanted to experience things, but also wanted to collect the data for it, audio, video, photograph, historically validated, things that concur with activity. So I started as an open skeptic, quickly became a believer in Port Gamble in about 2 months of doing the tours. And I had so many experiences that I was like, okay, there's something more to this.
Wow.
But, I think everybody on my tours, I ask people, show of hands, who would say you're an open skeptic? Who would say you're a believer? Who would say you're a skeptic? And I've always found it interesting that, I say, raise your hand if you're a believer. And, I usually get a good number of people raise their hand. And I say, keep your hand up if it's because you had a personal experience. You know what you experienced, or maybe you don't know what it was, but you saw something, you heard something, you felt something, like at your early jobs, hearing voices or the call lights going on and off. You had a personal experience. That's usually what makes people say I'm a believer in the paranormal. And it shows the impact of a personal experience. It's the most impactful on us, but we also have to remember we're human. And so we're very flawed in so many ways. And so a personal experience, well, it's very impactful, but it might not have been a ghost, but that's how you perceived it. But skeptics, those they're the most important people in the field of research, because if you're on a team and you're going out and doing investigations and everybody on the team is a believer, who's going to try and find the logical explanation to something? The knocking sound that these your clients report, well, let's go outside and take a look. It happens to be a tree branch in the wind hitting the house. Skeptics are the ones that find that stuff. And so it's really important to have them involved. It's a really important component. And so although you can be a believer and still be skeptical, so I was very lucky in my start into the paranormal field to learn investigation from some of the best skeptics in the Pacific Northwest. And so I got to learn how to be skeptical. But now I just kind of joke that I'm not skeptical of the dead. I'm skeptical of the living. And so when I'm doing research or investigations, I tend to like to observe the other investigators, because I'm more skeptical of us than the dead. So
interesting.
So there's different roles that I think are important, in all of it, but it's definitely changed my life for the better, especially doing mediumship work, being able to connect to people's loved ones, and deliver messages. Not all the time, most of the time there's a message, but sometimes there's not. And just to help a person who needed to hear that from, their loved one who passed away. It's an incredible experience to pass along something that is so meaningful to somebody. And, a lot of people think it's, kind of scary doing that work, or, how do you know what you're dealing with? And, I guess if something doesn't feel right, you'll know it, and you don't have to approach it. But in all of my experience, I've only ever come across human spirits. So those, people have passed away.
That was my next question. We both have a very strong background in our Christian faith, and coming across potentially that exact scenario where it's like, okay, this is a human spirit that has moved on versus something that, you know, I would call like demonic. Like
Right.
how often do you run into that stuff in your field of work, or have you heard about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that stuff is out there. Maybe I don't experience it, thankfully. I think, you know, I've never said it's not out there, but everything I've ever come across is human. In its origin, I've come across, I think, really old spirits that have been around for a long time. New spirits, people who passed away, you know, recently, but I've never come across anything that's that I would describe as a non-human spirit. So I kind of like to remind myself that, and in the work that I do, that you know, I think that stuff could be out there, but I don't know.
In your community, though, like in the paranormal community, is that is it talked about? Whereas people have you heard of people experiencing that?
Yeah. I have heard of people experiencing that, but the credibility of it is not there for me. I'm very skeptical of it. I think they're misinterpreting. For example, you know, someone, you know, describing evil or dark things that they're experiencing, a dark spirit and that sort of thing. It could be a person who was messed up in life and they're still kind of carrying that on. I always try and, like, this is something I talked about on my show the other night. I've done a presentation about it. It's an interesting train of thought that ghosts were people once too, and we have to remember that. And so
I'm sorry, I missed it. What were people once to?
Ghosts were people once too. So just like us, like when we think about ghosts and stuff, we lose the conscious thought of a human connection with something. When you think of a ghost, you might think of Ghostbusters, right? You might think of Slimer or something like. So when somebody says ghost, everyone has preformed bias that pops up in their head, and so but we forget they're people once too. And so if we look at ourselves, look in the mirror, we look at ourselves, what do we know about ourselves? You know, Michael, if you were to look in the mirror, you know, you ask yourself, you know, what lifts me up? What are the things in my life that lift me up, right? What are the things that bring me down? And then you could think about everybody else who has done that in the world, that has looked in the mirror. You start to think about the overall human experience. And then that kind of puts things in a different perspective with ghosts, just to remember that it's not some other weird thing. It's just, you know, they're one of us. And so when we go to the side, it's my belief, some people go to the light right away, and the proverbial light. Some people don't. They choose not to, or maybe they're waiting for somebody. And
You're talking about the deceased.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
So there's the proverbial light, right?
Right.
And some people go right to it, and I call it the soul's car wash. Basically, when you go to the light, everything that held you down in life is washed away, and you are surrounded by love and, you know, the light. Some people might say that's heaven, you know, but you learn to accept that. You accept your life, but everything's kind of washed away. Some people don't do that right away, or they choose not to, or they don't know they're dead, and so they don't know to go to the light.
Interesting.
Beetlejuice, prime example.
Totally.
Didn't know they were dead.
I haven't.
The first
seen that
Beetlejuice.
movie.
What?
I haven't seen Beetlejuice.
Dude, it's so good, dude.
Yeah,
It's so good.
yeah, you need to watch that. I think they got some things right. There's spirits out there that are meant to help others cross over, and to guide them.
So you
And-
think that, because you said at the beginning, you think everybody has like a guardian angel or something like that. So
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, like, in that moment where they're deciding if they're like going to this proverbial light or not, that these spirits are deciding whether or not they want to maybe stay and assist somebody
Yeah.
who's still living.
There's always been kind of a negative connotation for what you can call an earthbound spirit, somebody who hasn't gone to the light. There's a belief out there, and I think it comes from religion, that if there's a ghost, it's because they're stuck. You know, they're stuck, or they can't go. Yeah, they can't go on. And I don't know. I'm not here to say that's true or not, but in my experience, so I have a great example. My grandfather passed away 16 years prior to my grandmother, and this was well before my universal 2x4 hit me in the head, anything like that. But my grandparents were married forever, just loved each other so much, right? So my grandmother was at the end of her life, and I happened to be just walking through my living room, and just all of a sudden had all this emotions kind of pop up in me, and a million butterflies, and I know that means, that to me tells me something's going on from a ghost spiritual perspective. Feeling the energy, and I saw this hand, and I saw this other hand. Then I realized it was my grandfather and my grandmother, and I saw their hands go together, and then they turned into this bright light and went and shot off into this light.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, whoa, what just happened? You know, it was a quick, like vision, but super intense emotions. Immediately after that, I get my phone rings. I answer, and it's my dad, and he says, "Your grandmother just passed away."
Wow.
And I said, "I know."
Wow.
But what it showed me is my grandfather, I think, waited for her. He didn't go to the light originally. He waited for her, and they both went together.
Is this the same grandfather who saw the Native
Yep.
Americans with you?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I saw them both at my grandmother's graveside funeral service.
Huh.
They were both standing amongst the family. But they went into this light. So I think he waited. So, and that was kind of like confirmation to me that you don't have to go to the light right away. If you're like he wanted to wait for her so they could go together, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But so someone who hasn't gone to the light is often referred to as an earthbound spirit. Everyone always kind of thinks, well, they must be evil. They're stuck, purgatory, things like that. But I think they're is unfinished business, or they left a lot of things unfinished. And so they're kind of trying to help fix that. Or they're really worried about their loved one, and they want to stay here with them, sort of thing. I think that's most often the case. But once you do go to the light, in my experience, the spirit feels very different than somebody who hasn't, because they feel so much lighter. Once they go to the light, they become a part of the light. And then when they come back, they're, in a sense, the light. They're a part of it. Am I weirding you guys out a lot?
No.
Okay.
No, it's like, because, I think that there's, as a Bible-believing, Christ-following Christian.
I grew up Catholic.
There's, there's a
lot of crossover.
Well, and I don't know if it's like a Western thing. There is a lot of crossover, but certainly there's plenty of skeptics within Christianity as well.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of counterintuitive.
Especially from a Catholic perspective, because the whole point, I think people, they'll look at Catholics and they'll say, "Oh man, you're worshiping Mary." It's like, no, they're not worshiping Mary. They're talking to Mary and asking her to pray on their behalf. And so they really believe that the Catholic faith really believes that as you pass on, the Christians are alive. The church as a whole is alive in the dead and in the living. And so there's a lot of, to say that there's skepticism in the Christian community is kind of counterintuitive, knowing that that's exactly what the largest church on the planet believes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I just think that I can only go off my experience and what I experience and feedback that I get from clients that I do readings for, is that I think that heaven is just what you make it. Basically, if you look at the classic sense of the terms heaven and hell, it's what you make your experience once you leave your earthly shell behind. because I think everybody does go to the light at some point. It's just whether they choose it or not. I know of some experiences of where it seemed to be like an evil sort of entity, which is probably just somebody who's carried on their personality in the afterlife. They were a real jerk in life, so they're coming across that way. And there are people who help them move on. There are teams that do that kind of stuff. And one of the coolest things I ever heard was a tactic to get something unstuck or something that's not willing to leave was to just keep saying, follow your mom's voice. She's calling you. She'll take you to the light. Follow your mom's voice. And then spirits will go. And then they go to the light and cross over. And so it's kind of interesting, but it is kind of counterintuitive what you're talking about. But I just think that in my experience, like I grew up Catholic, believing in Jesus and God and disciples and everything. And I think there's space for all that. It's just we don't really know until we cross over, right? But I do know that we don't end, and it is what you make it. And we do take our pieces of us from this side with us. But to me, the light is heaven. It's the proverbial light. It's the energy that runs everything, and we, in a sense, we can become a part of that. And it's about accepting your life, all the mistakes you made. When you go through the light in the soul's car wash, you're having that retrospect of your life, but you're accepting it, and then you're accepting all the love that comes with that light, and then you're a part of it. And so it kind of depends on just how you look at it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the breadth of experience and the breadth of the way people believe in it, what they believe is true, what they believe is false. It seems to be people's experiences seem to be so diverse. I cannot think of an experience that I've had with the paranormal, but I just have heard so many people talk about it.
Yeah. You've probably had your own experience. You just didn't realize it.
Probably. Yeah. And I totally, I'm that notion is certainly, it doesn't bother me that I haven't experienced it, but just, I know enough people. It's like, this is a trustworthy person who has no reason to lie to me. So I believe them.
Yeah.
I believe them. And then also it's kind of like, as far as like the like all of the spiritual stuff is found in, the book that I think is authoritative over life. It's like all of the notion of the afterlife, it's all presented there. Notion of mediums is there. I can't remember what book it's in, but Saul.
I think, yes.
He goes to a medium to consult, to attempt to consult with Samuel, who was his spiritual leader and the priest who made him king.
Right.
And
Samuel
showed up. And it was almost as if like Saul didn't expect it to actually work. Almost he goes to this medium and he's like, I want to talk to Saul. Part of it is like Samuel. Saul is kind of like resisting going directly to God, because sort of his what he wants to accomplish is more selfish and self-focused, and he knows that I think going to God is going to require a sacrifice. He'll call him out on it, and then so he's like, well, I want to talk to a person, someone, I guess an equal. This is my own interpretation of the passage. Goes to this medium, and then Samuel shows up. And the medium is like, what the? Oh. It worked.
Yeah.
And Samuel gives Saul the same message that God would have given him, which is, you need to get your act together.
Yeah.
And so when I read that, I'm kind of like, well, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
That's enough for me. Corroborating with stories like the stories that you have, the stories that I've heard from so many different people.
Yeah. Well, when spirits do come across and have a message. Some of them are like, they'll tell their person that I'm doing the reading for, you need to get your act together. Usually if they're not doing something right, that comes up first. But there's kind of, I think the best parts of faith come through as a medium. That's, you get the best parts, I think, of what faith are that comes through. They talk about love a lot. Spirits talk about love. They talk about regret of not being present. You know, I brought that up earlier. They often talk about, don't worry about what you have. Don't worry about chasing this. Worry about the ones you got. Worry about who you're with and be with them. You know, and so there's kind of like these common things, and they all speak to, I think, the best parts in faith and religion. And that's just kind of been my overarching experience with it. And so I think there's, I just think we don't know much and anything's possible. And faith is a good way to point you in the right direction and fill in a lot of those blanks of, you know, that we don't know. But I think we also have to remember anything's possible. And so I think there's room for, although my work that I do with spirits and stuff is not really, I wouldn't say it's based in religion. I just kind of
just
welcome all who need to come forward to say a message, sort of thing. And I've had people that are from different religions, different parts of the world. They speak in foreign language, or I see they're writing in foreign language. Somehow I know what it says.
Wow.
And so it does, you know, Christian or Muslim or Buddhist, you know, it doesn't really matter. There's kind of a universal language on the other side, and it's love. And so it's kind of interesting. I think there's room for all of it. You know what I mean? It's just it's how we perceive it, and we certainly won't know for sure until it's our time to find out. You know.
Yeah.
So in Kitsap, Port Gamble seems to be, is that like our hub basically for a lot of this activity?
Yeah, as far as I think the number of sites that have frequent activity, yes. And most of the town, there's a lot more buildings there than not that have reported activity.
And that's just because maybe the age of the town, the age of the buildings?
Well, that could have a factor with it. If you look at, you know, Europe or really ancient sites, they always seem to be haunted, right? Or the castles in England and Ireland, right? That are really old. They seem to be haunted. So that could have something to do with it. But people I asked myself this question when I started doing work up there was, why is this town so haunted? Why is there so much stuff? You can look at geology. There's a lot of quartz in the bedrock there that's conducive to electromagnetic energy. I think the best that people can figure is spirits, ghosts, however you want to label them, are electromagnetic fields, and they're just independent. And so, like, we have our own electromagnetic field, right? Brain activity, heart activity, and, you know, a main rule of science is you can't destroy energy, you can transform it. So what happens, our energy just doesn't get destroyed, it transforms. So you can think that we're electromagnetic fields ourselves. I don't know where I was going with that, but
that reminds me of something. I can't remember where I heard it from, but must have been some YouTube video that I watched years ago where they were like, there's a consistent weight that people lose, like a measurable weight that is lost
like
at the moment of death.
27 kilograms or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's consistent for every person that's measured for it when they die, that whatever that specific
so is that a
weight
weighted electromagnetic field? I remember where I was going with all this. You know, when you look at a place like Port Gamble, my best opinion is when you look at the history of a place, not a lot of people died there, you know, not like big accidents or anything like that. There's a long Native American history there. There's really no record of big sickness coming in and wiping a bunch of people out. Like, there's not like evidence of mass death there. And so my best opinion as to why it could be a paranormal hub for the area is because it's a cool area. And my best opinion is that the spirits that are there, they love it and they just don't want to leave.
Interesting.
And I think most of them have gone to the light, but they just come back. They just want to be there. They love being there. I'm pretty sure I'll haunt the town someday. When that day comes, I'll be messing with people. So at least I hope to. There's a lot of factors that could go into contributing to a haunted place, but I just think they love it there.
Yeah.
And my family loves being there, so I can kind of like personally relate. Well, yeah, I love being here too.
Yeah. So you love being there so much that you actually took on this position of town manager? Is that?
Well, I worked my way up to it.
Yeah.
So
you said 15 years?
Yeah, almost 15 years. Wow. I've been working there. I started. So my wife and I had a sign business, and she still does. So we started a business right around the 2009 economic crash.
Nice.
And we're like, what are we doing? But, so we kind of kind of floated through that.
Mm-hmm.
And and we were like, oh man, I just need to get something steady, part-time, whatever, just because our business was so riding the wave that all the other businesses were.
What business was it, or is it?
It's a sign business, Orbea Sign Company.
Okay, all right.
And so I wanted something steady, and they had an opening in our weddings and events team for Port Gamble. And so that's where I started working seasonal table pusher, basically, and then found it that was really fun working in the weddings, and then I got to do marketing, and so then I really discovered I have a big passion for marketing, and then tourism marketing, and so I really kind of got into that while doing the weddings and events, and then just kind of worked my way up to the position of town site manager. So and I've been in that position for a little over 4 years.
Okay. And unofficial mayor. So
yes.
Is there responsibilities with that title?
Well, I think everyone has always called the position mayor because you oversee everything there. Mm-hmm. So I oversee the town operations basically. So it's a company-owned town. So my job is to oversee all the maintenance and the leasing for all the places, and then also oversee the weddings and events business. But I also am in charge of doing all the marketing and newspaper articles, newspaper ads.
Wow.
So it's kind of like leading a chamber of commerce in a way. So it's just I'm not elected, so you can't call me mayor. So that's what I always say.
Are any of those houses, you said you're in charge of like the leasing, so it's a company-owned town.
Yep.
Does anybody own those houses in there that's not the company?
The only building that's not owned by the company is the Masonic Lodge.
Oh, okay.
So
and the Masons own that.
The Masons own that. It was written that way. They own the building, but not the land that it's on. And but everything else they're all rentals up there. Yeah, so that's all company owned. The whole town site's about 127 acres, and so it's not big for when you think of a town. But yeah, it's all company owned and maintained.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is there any like coming up this summer? Like, do you guys have anything like really like new and fun planned for the town coming up this year?
Well, we're just trying to keep up with all the people, on the weekends and during the week. The town's been getting so busy the last few years. So that's great. But there's the Maritime Music Festival coming up. It's the second weekend in August. That's one of the longest standing events that's happened annually there. It's a day of sea shanties and
oh, cool.
You guys play music and the really cool instruments.
Yeah.
That there's some that I always see one that like I didn't know existed.
I think that's the first place I saw a Chapman stick.
Oh, really? At the Maritime Music?
Yeah, it must have been that.
Yeah.
Because I was in Port Gamble. There was a guy playing music. There was something going. This is like more than a decade ago, and I remember
it's probably
I was
the Maritime Music
whoa,
then. Yeah,
dude, check this. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
so that's coming up in August. And then my ghost walks start late September, early October.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have we've got the 16th annual Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up November 7th through 9th. That's a 3-day event. It's the oldest ghost conference on the West Coast.
Wow.
And so it's our 16th annual this year. It'll be my
Ghost
15th one
conference.
doing it. Yeah,
Wow,
it's a
dude.
paranormal conference.
Every now and then you walk around, every other booth just doesn't have anybody at it.
That's actually a fun idea. That's actually good. I might have to steal that. It's like that meme that says, ghost meeting in progress, and it's an empty conference room.
Exactly.
Yeah, or John Cena's there.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. I shouldn't know that, but I do.
It's like our third wrestling.
I know. I don't know what's going on here. But so yeah, the conference is great. We use the historic theater. And then one of our wedding venues, the Hood Canal Vista Pavilion. And so we bring in speakers, and then there's lots of different types of classes you can take. And then we open up at least 5 different locations at night, and people can go investigate and see if they can have their own experience or get a recording of something. And they do, which is kind of fun. The long-term residents, as we call them there, they don't disappoint. So,
oh man.
And some of them will interact with you as well, which is interesting. So we have the Ghost Conference coming up, and it's just a fun, cool place for people who have experiences to come in and not be judged. They can share their experience with others, and they're not judged. One of the most common things, if I had a nickel for every time someone started a ghost story with, well, you're going to think I'm crazy, I'd be a rich man, I'll tell you that. So the conference is coming up. And then in December, I think it's going to be December 6th and 7th this year, we have Country Christmas, which is probably our biggest event of the year. And if you're wanting a small town Christmas event with the small town feel, that's definitely an event for you.
I can't believe I haven't been to that.
You got to come out. Yeah. So we do fireworks. We have Santa's workshop. The Girl Scouts run that. So it's a nice fundraiser for them.
Sweet.
There's hay rides around town. All the shops have amazing shopping deals going on.
I can't believe I haven't been to that. When is that?
It's it's typically been the second weekend of December, but we're moving it up a week because
Early December then.
Yeah, early December. We're
It's a
moving it up a
weekend
week.
thing?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it'll be a Saturday, Sunday. Fireworks are on the Saturday night. We do a big tree lighting. We have everybody that's there. We do a big countdown, and then we light up a huge tree, and then the fireworks go off after that. It's a lot of fun.
Sweet.
Jessica and I's first Christmas together after we got married, we bought our first tree ornaments from the general store at that.
Oh,
at that
that's
thing.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
still have them. They're little pigs.
Oh, nice.
They're pretty sweet. So with all these events that Port Gamble does, where is this a separate thing, or is the zombie movies that have come out of there?
Dang it.
Yes.
I was going to ask that. Yeah,
is
dude.
that incorporated in all of this?
Yeah.
And
So
is there going to be more?
Wait, there's been more than one?
No, there's only been one zombie movie
I
filmed
thought
there.
there was 2.
No, there's been other short films that have
okay.
been done
All
up
right.
there. Like short film projects, things like that have been filmed. We had a really cool music video film there.
Thriller?
It was about a year ago. Yeah, Thriller 2. I'll have to get it to you guys, but it was all filmed in the Walker-Ames House. As a band from Seattle.
Oh, cool.
It was a really cool experience. And when they showed up to film, Queens of the Stone Age was in town in Seattle, and this band's singer looked just like Josh Holmes,
Josh Homney.
or however you pronounce it.
Dude, that was my favorite band growing up.
And I thought it was him. I was like, God, is that him?
Whoa.
And so that was kind of crazy, but then I figured out it wasn't him. But The Zombies, a Mass Destruction film that was filmed in 2008, released in 2009.
Classic.
And yes, and
everybody was so stoked about
they
that.
filmed the whole thing there. It was a Seattle-based film production company who did it. And the only thing they CGI'd was some jets flying over, military jets flying over the town. But everything else they filmed there. It was a fun experience. I was not in it.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I was in it for a second, but they cut it. There was a scene where it looks like they're at a gas station, and that's where the sign shop was. My wife and I worked at the time. This is before I was working for the town. And we knew they were filming outside, and then all of a sudden we hear this guy just start yelling the F word, and so just out of natural reaction, my wife and I peeked our heads out the window there, and then we hear cut. We totally got in their shot. Yeah, and there was another time. Yes, I was never in it, but there was another time where it was late night one night, and I didn't realize they were doing night filming. They would always send notice out to all the tenants if they were going to be doing night filming, and I had just forgot about it. Well, my dog alerted to the door and was growling, and I opened the door, and there was 100 zombies coming down the hill towards my house. And I gotta tell you, for a split second, I was like, "Where's my shotgun?" And then I was like, "Oh wait, yeah, they're filming at night tonight."
That is hilarious.
It's here.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and then the big kind of finale scenes to it. They filmed on Rainier Avenue. They had cars flipped over, cars blowing up. They had hundreds of extras, and the cast fighting all these zombies. And apparently this older woman pulled up kind of by the water towers. We had EMT vehicles up there, just on site. And this poor woman pulled up and said, "Are we at war?" Because all this stuff was going on. They were like, "Oh, no, ma'am, we're filming a movie here." And she's like, "Okay." And then drove off. And
that's awesome.
But they had this place was just, blowing up and, craziness going on. So if you haven't seen it, you can get it on Amazon. And it's usually on Comcast On Demand, like the FearNet, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
For the Scary Movies channel. You can Zombies of Mass Destruction. They filmed a lot of it in the Walker-Ames house. So I don't know about a number 2 being made, but we are looking at putting together a Halloween event where
that only makes sense.
Where we have a zombie costume contest. It's in the works.
Nice.
It's not out yet, but and then we're hoping to be able to show the movie that night on Halloween night in the theater. I'll just note that the Port Gamble Theater has brought back cinema to the theater. The last movies that were shown were 1956, 1957.
Oh, wow.
And so they raised the money. They've got a new screen, new projector,
How many
sound
seats are in
system. About 100, I think they can do up to 180 in there.
Much fun.
So they've shown Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka. Next one coming up is Casablanca.
Dude.
But if
When
you
is
want to
that?
see, I think that's July 26th.
Oh, I want to
is the next. So they're doing once a month to start. But if you want to see, it's kind of weird. The board president of the theater, we were talking the other day, and it's kind of cool to think, with Wizard of Oz and, these older movies, people sat in that theater 80 years ago
movies.
and watched these as first run movies.
Wow, yeah.
And so it's kind of cool to think that. So they brought cinema back, so we're hoping we can get Zombies of Mass Destruction for Halloween night to watch there. And they do concerts there at the theater now. They do monthly concerts with
really?
nationally touring acts. Yeah. They do a lot of folk music, bluegrass, that style music. And which I always get frustrated watching that stuff because those musicians are really good. But so hopefully we'll get Zombies of Mass Destruction there for a Halloween night event. So stay tuned for that. But,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think unless you have anything else, we're coming up on time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got probably another 3 hours of discussion.
Probably.
Yeah, I didn't even really tell any ghost stories. So yeah.
Oh shoot! And give us a good ghost.
I'll give
story.
you a good one.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good one. Walker-Ames House, the private ghost tour. So I don't really do those anymore, but you had to have at least 10 people to do a private tour. And so I had a group with me. We're in the house, And towards the front of the house, there's what we call the front foyer area. And so you have your parlor and your front door, grand staircase. It's, where they would greet people. And so I was kind of leaned up against a fireplace. We did have the lights out. I had my flashlight on, pointed at the ground, and I was given some history of the house. And we heard what sounded like a scuffle on the floor behind me, like somebody dragged their foot, sort of thing. So what do? Instinctively, you turn to see what the noise was. And when I turned with my flashlight, there was a woman standing right behind me. And my flashlight beam hit her in the eye. She didn't flinch. She was looking straight towards the front windows. And I remember she cast a shadow on the wall, and her hair looked kind of all messed up. And the whole group, we all went, gasped. We all saw her. And when we gasped, she just vanished right out of my flashlight.
Oh, no.
And she looked real. And then everybody was like, we're done, we're leaving. And so then I made everybody walk through that hallway, where she was, right behind me. We all walked out through there, and you could feel it. It felt like thick Indiana Jones spider webs in that hallway, just the energy. And then I couldn't get anybody to come back in with me. I was like, okay, well, we've been outside a few minutes. Come on back. Let's go back in. And nobody wanted to come back in.
Whoa.
So there's lots of experiences like that. But that was a really cool one because it was like a real person standing there. And then they were just gone.
Oh,
like
man.
That. So,
yeah.
I got lots of good games in there, slaps on the rear end in that house. Someone likes to give good games, so
that's definitely what I would be doing if I was in that position. Here he comes.
My gosh. What's the percentage of ghosts who have gone into the light giving good games versus not?
Well, I think everybody who's gone to the light gives good games.
All right, there you go.
You have to.
There used to be kind of a nasty spirit in that house, but it seems to have been gone for a long time now. People don't experience, it would make you feel bad. People would get scratches, things like that. And so that doesn't seem to be happening. But yeah, that's one of many crazy experiences. If you go to portgambleparanormal.com and go to the story tab, I've got a bunch of evidence that I've collected over the years on their audio stuff. Audio is the most prevalent there. You can almost always pick up something.
Oh, gosh.
And there's a couple of clips on there where I ask a question and get a direct response.
Really?
And plenty of disembodied voices experience, where you're, hey, there was one in particular I asked, are you looking for your spectacles? I knew where this woman who had lived in the house, her glasses are down in the museum in a case. And so I asked if she looking for them, and we got a clear yes out loud to us. So it's I love when that sort of thing can happen.
Jeez.
But yeah.
Oh. That's pretty cool.
It sounds creepy and freaky, but once you get used to it, it's not. It's just like you're having a conversation.
And your tours start back up again in September, you said?
Yeah, I'm going to do a couple of summer ones. I think I'm actually going to get those posted this weekend. I think it's July. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong date. But mid-July, I'll have a tour, and then my podcast will be July 23rd is my next show. It's a monthly show. And then if you go to Facebook and look up Paranormal Pete Show, you'll find my page. But it streams there, and then YouTube, and it's part of the Sacred Spiral Network. And there's a lot of great shows on that network, so excited to bring that show back. And
sweet.
But yeah, I'll be playing evidence on there.
Network.
SacredSpiralNetwork.com, yeah, or on the socials. But my show's the Paranormal Pete Show, and you can definitely. I hope you check it out. It's
yeah, definitely.
I'll have guests from anywhere from psychic mediums to paranormal investigators to Bigfoot researchers to
we didn't even
alien
talk about
stuff.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, I got a great. Well, I'll have to come back and do this again because
Yes.
I've got a crazy Port Gamble, what I think was Bigfoot story, and it involves the military also. The military was there.
Oh, dude.
It was crazy.
Oh,
So,
my gosh.
I'll have to save that one for another time.
Dang it.
Dude, that's like, yeah, dude, that's like, I'm I am sold on Bigfoot. 100%, bro.
I'll have to show you the
Okay.
back of my hoodie when I get up.
Okay,
But
all right.
yeah, I think I believe in them too, man.
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
they're out there.
Dude, we couldn't end on a better note.
I know. Pete, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Adam, thank you.
it's been
Yeah,
fun.
Michael, thank
Yeah,
you.
of course.
Everyone,
Of course.
see you next week.